Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Darwinian Delusions, and with me I have found a rare person who's been living in a cave and God knows where. Assalamu alaikum, bro. Where have you been?
Around.
You've been around, okay. So, like...
You found the missing link.
Yeah, I found the missing link. He's been hovering around and... Okay, so I want to put something to you, right? Unplanned, unscripted. Okay, so I had a brainwave the other day and that was... Sam Harris is the most intelligent new atheist and the guy who gets it. Doesn't get the whole thing. I mean, his description of Islam, some of the things he says obviously are wrong, the way he tries to portray it as extreme and whatnot. But he's written this article called Islam and the Misuse of Ecstasy. And what he basically says in this article is this, that Islam brings about, and through the recitation of the Quran, and he actually puts up a clip of one of the reciters reciting the Quran, and he talks about how beautiful it is and how it moves you, and you know, this is what he's basically saying is the essence of Islam. And until and unless we understand this spiritual experience, we will not know how to deal with the problem of Islam. But then after saying these things, then he goes off into the misuse of ecstasy and how Islam is extreme, ignoring that. But he himself has now started to focus on spirituality and meditation and this type of stuff. For a while, right? So I'm kind of thinking that's a very dangerous atheist from the perspective that he actually understands, okay, that's the power of Islam. It's the spiritual element. It's this, it's this. And when you look at the rest of the atheists, they're just kind of like, Islam's wrong because it's immoral because of X, Y, Z. What do you think about that?
It's very smart.
Was very smart.
What he's doing, so he's playing with the kind of general reason why people ground their spiritual and intellectual convictions in Islam.
Yeah.
Because for most of Muslims, or even religious people in general, and non-religious people, they reaffirm their positions usually emotionally, psychologically, because we're not just functional robots that were inputs and outputs, right? Inputs, mental states, and outputs. It's not like, you know, you type in a code or an algorithm and you're going to accept the result. It doesn't work that way. We're emotional. So I think I saw a clip just today, that guy who's an actor, and he heard the adhan in Istanbul.
Liam Neeson?
Liam Neeson.
The guy who's like, I'm going to find out where you are.
Yeah. So he was going through certain issues. I don't really remember the full essence of the clip. But he said, for the first week, he was like, I don't want to hear the adhan. The second week, he was like, third week, was like, wow. It was like, I don't know, I forgot what words he used, but it seemed to have moved him. He said, maybe Islam is the answer, right? Wow, he used those type of terms. So human beings are not abstract robots like that, where like, even in the Islamic tradition, you know, how does Allah, who created the human being, knows the human being better than the human being does? Allah talks about the human being in the following way. We have a ruh, we have a soul, a consciousness, we have an aql, an intellect, we have an aql, a qalb, which is the heart, and the aql is a function of the qalb. Yeah. So the intellect is a function of the spiritual heart. You have a nafs, a ego or a psychological disposition, you have a fitra, an innate disposition, and all of those things are at a dynamic interplay. So our convictions are not necessarily based on an abstract intellect, but rather it's within that dynamic. So what Sam Harris is doing is, well, let's unravel that dynamic a little bit.
And let's make our own secular version of it.
Yeah, but here's a problem though, because obviously, you know, he's
well, firstly, he's worked out the algorithm.
Oh yeah, he hasn't worked out the algorithm.
No, not worked out the algorithm.
Because the point is, there is no algorithm. That he's worked out that it's more than just intellectual conviction.
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
Come on, he's a neuroscientist. He did a PhD, albeit apparently not a very good one. But anyway, the point is, he's not stupid, right? So when you look at the literature, cognitive science, and you go into this domain of knowledge, you're like, you know what? People are not necessarily convinced because of a presupposition. It's more about how does it relate to me? How does it relate to my world? How does it change my state of being? How does it make me
understand the world? Yeah.
How does it change? How does it affect my state of being? Yeah. It's about meaning. You know, sometimes you can transcend issues in your life and suffering in your life by standing in the possibility that you could give it a different meaning. Yeah. Forget intellectualizing it for a moment, because your intellectual intellectualization of your experience can be based on your limited understanding and your limited experiences and so on and so forth. Stand in the possibility that you could give it another meaning. That's the emotional, cognitive, psychological thing, right? So when you get into that domain, there's a lot going on, bro, right? So yeah, he's picked on something real, but I don't think he's going to provide a very strong challenge, although he's directing maybe the kind of secular, godless worldview and the people who represent that to a direction which is a new challenge to religious discourse, for sure. Imagine now, and that's what he's doing with his mindfulness and his meditation and all of that stuff. And his book, Waking Up, I believe it's called, he now is, and maybe others, they're just saying, look, you can have all the great ecstasy and experience that you get from Islam or any other religious spiritual tradition, but here's a secular version, but you can still have that connection and that feeling. But I have some random thoughts on this, because you literally just posed this question to me now, yeah? So here are my thoughts. It's more than just the experience and the feeling, because it has to be, number one, in line with certain intuitions. So it has to be intuitive, right? So when you're meditating, you're trying to have a spiritual experience, one day I think you're going to ask yourself, who am I connecting to? Because isn't true spirituality basically that you are connected to something outside of the universe?
Yeah.
So if mindfulness and this type of reductionist or materialist or physicalist spirituality is just chasing a feeling, well, how long are you going to do that? Because
it's almost like worshipping dopamine.
Well, it's worshipping a feeling, and it's also, in a way, worshipping yourself.
Wow.
Right? So, and that I don't think is going to be enough for people, because they're going to realize that they have cognitive limitations, psychological limitations, emotional limitations, physical limitations. Like, I'm not worthy of that adoration. Yes, obviously you should have self-love. That's in our tradition as well. Al-Ghazali, he wrote in his Ihya in the 36th volume on love that you should have true self-love should lead to the love of the divine. Why? Because true self-love, as Eric Fromm said in his book, The Art of Loving, which is a really good book, he said it's wanting good for yourself. So if you truly want good for yourself, then you should love God, and Al-Ghazali explains the reasons for that, but we don't have to unpack that now. But the point is, you know, how far are you going to chase this feeling? And once they start to realize it's just a feeling that's reduced to a physical process, which could be further reduced to electrons just whizzing around,
it loses all this oomph.
Of course it does. It loses all of its meaning, all of its oomph. It's like an atheist who is a philosophical naturalist and says human beings have ultimate value. Okay, I agree with your sentiments, but according to your worldview, it's a sentimentalism. It's just sentimentalism. Why? Because it's just electrons whizzing around in different ways, and they're cold, blind, and unconscious. Like Richard Dawkins, he says in his book, I think, A River Out of Eden, he says it's blind, it's cold, meaning there is no intention behind the physical stuff or physical process that's directing it in a particular way. So it's blind, and it's cold and unconscious because an individual electron, unless you're a panpsychist, but that's a different issue. Yeah. But a physicalist would say, well, electron doesn't have any interest in consciousness. It's not conscious of itself, and it's not conscious of something outside of itself. So reality, according to philosophical naturalists, which are most atheists, they don't believe in the divine. They believe everything can be reduced to physical process to some degree, and there is no non-physical. The value, like human beings have ultimate value, they cannot justify that sentiment. So what if because it's just cold, blind, and non-conscious.
So that's a really good.
So there's no real difference between me and a snowman. You hack away a snowman, you hack me away. It's a rearrangement of stuff.
So that's a really powerful argument. But just to end, what if I throw?
Wait, there's more. Let's unpack this further, man. Okay. You just threw the question at me.
No, I want to throw a spanner.
By the way, you know, these are my intuitions. I could be totally wrong, because he just threw the question at me, So
what if someone says that
people want a meaningful experience, bro? People aren't stupid. You find you're gonna have meditation, but for them it's more of a utility. It is for it's a means to an end. What's the end? More money, success in the world. You're not fulfilling that spiritual need, right? Which is to be connected with something outside of yourself, right? So don't get me wrong. I do believe, or I do appreciate, that's the better word to use, that using these tools and techniques can be very powerful from a utility point of view. But if people want a true, meaningful spiritual experience, You need to connect with the one that created you, or connect with something outside of the universe at least.
So let's just
Bro, it ends up being the whole universe, as you told me, becomes an idol. It's self-worship. Allah mentions this. Have you not seen the one who takes his hawa, his desires as his Lord? Have you not seen the one who takes the rabbis and the monks as their Lord? You know, the leadership, and so on and so forth. So, what this just proves is what? Sam Harris has proven the fitrah. That there is a human need for these experiences. Yeah. But the question that I would pose to him is, well, let's have a meaningful experience. And remember, there's gonna if say for example the whole atheist movement, if you want to call it a kind of monolith, it's not a monolith, but just assume, it goes down this direction of trying to replace ecstasy replacement, So remove ecstasy replacement, therapy, ecstasy replacement therapy, Anyway, so they do this ecstasy replacement therapy. When these type of ideas challenge themselves in the public domain, what's going to emerge? Well, they're going to say, right, yeah, that's a great feeling. We have a great feeling, but our one's meaningful and it's grounded in intellectual tradition. It's going to come out doing that. That's what's going to happen, because human beings, they want meaningful experiences, especially if they're exposed to these questions. So, for example, if someone's just sedated and thrown on a plane, bro, and then they wake up, they have first class, great experience, food, entertainment, this, that, and the other. First 5 minutes, they may just enjoy all of those experiences, but then thinking, all right,
what now?
What now? How did I get here? What am I supposed to do? Where am I going? So imagine having having experiences that are great and spiritual and all of that stuff, and at the same time, it being meaningful and ethical, and you can ground your intuition such as human value, rights, purpose of life, ultimate happiness, ultimate hope, in something that is true.
Okay.
So I would just respond to Sam Harris and say, as a social thing, you may win some people over, but in the long term, when we understand what you're doing, we just expose your narrative as self-worship, not meaningful, not grounded in anything intellectual, has physicalist presuppositions which we can unpack. Even in his book, from what I remember, in Waking Up, he admits that we can't solve from a physicalist point of view the hard problem of consciousness. We could introduce a theistic. What makes us human, bro, is inner subjective conscious experiences. In actual fact, his whole narrative, bro, you've excited me. His whole narrative, we could anchor off his narrative and say, yeah, exactly. You've got it right, Sam. Woohoo. We say, those experiences, are you having an inner subjective conscious experience of mindfulness and meditation? Do you know that can't be explained by your own worldview? And it can only be explained in a non-physicalist worldview? Let's have this discussion. And what would you rather have? A meaningful spiritual experience that you can understand with a different ontology, or one that reduces the human being to blind, non-conscious, cold electrons whizzing around? We should unpack this for another day.
We should. And what you've done is you've answered the question. He is the most dangerous atheist, but for the atheist movement, because he's going to take them down this road. Then it's going to be like, okay, what now, guys? They're all going to transfer over.
Look, I've been studying this issue, obviously, at university on hard problem of consciousness, physicalism, and stuff like that. And to be honest, if he wants to open that kind of worms, let's do it.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us on Darwinian Delusions. Let us know, what are you doing? What are we doing at Sapiens? Just a plug.
Yeah, so go to sapiensinstitute.org. We've got new essays, articles. We've got new research coming out. For example, we're doing a huge research paper on
live soon.
The concept of God in Islam and Christianity, to do with maximal perfection, love and forgiveness, which is an issue that's not really addressed in the English language properly, in my view. We've got regular series called Sapient Thoughts, which has 4 main objectives. Number 1, it's to touch, move and inspire them so they could start their journey to share Islam academically and intellectually. It's also to provide a robust case for the Islamic worldview. It's also to basically provide answers to conditions and objections, and finally to comment on theophilosophical, religious and spiritual matters. That's happening. You're doing videos for us tomorrow on this, inshallah. You said you're gonna have a black shirt. You said, well done. We'll make you look slimmer. Anyway, the other thing is we're going to do a weekly live soon. I haven't even announced this yet. We haven't announced it, but we're going to do a weekly live, inshallah. We don't know the name yet. We're thinking of the Sapient Experience, maybe, but we'll see. So that's going to come up as well.
In Feb, something special.
Don't remember. February. What was February?
something public that we've said is going to be done.
Oh yeah. So yes, of course, yes. So Sabur's really long delay of finishing the book.
Is it me?
Well, my main chapter's already done. Yeah. So there's a book coming out called The Failed Hypothesis, which is about science, physicalism, Islam, religion, spirituality, Darwinism, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's something on evolutionary realism, dealing with that new kind of idea. There was a book published this year actually, so it's novel. We're dealing with that narrative that you can ground objective moral values in biology, right? In biological environments. So we're addressing that. We're addressing how to deal with Darwinism. That it's not an issue for Islam. It's not an issue for theism. We're doing something to do with the history of science as well and how Islam fits in. Realism, anti-realism, consciousness in terms of physicalism and the hard problem of consciousness, neuroscience.
You've got a lot of work to do.
No, I've done my main chapter. Sabur needs to finish everything else. But he said on the 20th of February.
28th.
28th. Thank God it's not the day. Thank God it's not the 30th of February. On the 28th of February, Sabur is gonna at least finish the first draft, inshallah. And yeah, so I'm excited about that. But I think what's important, we're gonna be producing little videos on this. So some of these videos you're gonna see in the next couple of weeks, because Sabur's doing at least 4 or 5 tomorrow, 5-minute clips. Yeah, but yeah, so you know, he caught me in my gym clothes. I do apologize. I was about to possibly go to the gym with the person who's holding the camera.
So yeah. Let us know your thoughts on everything that's been said. Make sure you go to the link.
By the way, bro, by God, I never knew who was going to give me this question, yeah? Wallahi. And I'm so excited about it. I think we should do more videos properly on this issue because
it's an interesting topic.
No, your insight was phenomenal.
What's the insight?
That why you think he's dangerous. He's very smart what he's doing. Absolutely. We should do like robust videos on this topic. Yeah, maybe tomorrow. Absolutely. Anyway,
so
good to see you guys. Well, make sure you, but you know.
Make sure you subscribe to Sapiens Institute and go to the links. Assalamu alaikum.